Hello everyone, my name is Jasmine McCoy and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, thank you for clicking in to drop by, but if you're a returner, it is always nice to have you back. In this video, we are going to be talking about some of my tips for secondary interviews for medical school applicants. This video is coming at the request of Rehamel Faki, number 4875. Thank you very much for your request, your suggestion. I am coming and making this video specifically for you, and also some of my other subscribers who have told me that they are in the process of applying to medical school like myself. Well, not anymore. I'm actually in medical school now. Before we get too far into this video, if you are not yet subscribed, that is okay. Let me help you out with that. All you got to do is take your finger, your cursor, your mouse, whatever it might be, and click the big red button that says subscribe in the bottom right hand corner. That helps me out when I am putting out these videos. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up, and if you extra like this video, you can become a patron of my YouTube channel for as little as $2 a month using the link in the description. But without further ado, let's get into some tips for secondary applications. First of all, what is a secondary application? A secondary application means that you have made that first cut, that the school has looked at your primary application, your MCAT, your GPA, and they said, we like you. We want to learn more about you. And because we want to learn more about you, we want you to fill out some essays. So many essays, so many essays. You will be writing quite a bit now. You've already written, your personal statement. I made a video about that earlier. You can watch that, link in the description. But you're going to be writing even more now. But the real kicker is that these secondary applications cost, and they could be anywhere from free. Maybe the school is so interested in you that they say they want to waive your secondary application fee. That's what happened to me in the case of the medical school that I am now going to, Northwestern University, Feinberg School of Medicine. But they can also go all the way up to being $100, $120. Sometimes you pay the fee after filling out your secondary application. Sometimes, for one of the schools that I applied to, I had to pay the application fee before even starting the secondary application. Yes. So either way, they will get their money somehow. When I think about my secondary application process, I filled out 22 secondary applications, which got me 16 interviews, and ultimately I ended up getting 6 waitlists, 6 acceptances, one of those acceptances being to the number 13 medical school here in the United States. So I feel like I had to be pretty good at my secondary applications, and these are some of the tips that I am going to be sharing with you now about how to make sure that you get through this step of the medical school application process. The first thing you're going to want to think about is your timeline, and we're going to look at this little graphic now coming from Med School Insiders. By now, if you're looking at this video, it's because you have already taken your MCAT, you've already submitted your primary, and now we are in, at least at the time of filming this, the end of July. It's time to fill out your secondary applications. Your secondary applications can be filled out all the way up until the end of January, but this does kind of depend on when the deadline is for the specific schools that you have been invited to complete secondaries for. For some of the schools, they might say, thank you, like in the email. They might say, thank you so much for your application. We would like to get to know more about you. Here's the link to the secondary application portal. It is due 30 days from receipt of this email. Very specific. It is different for every person, and you need to set a 30-day timer saying, okay, I have to make sure that X school secondary is done within 30 days. Other times, it's a strict deadline. The deadline is the 31st of March. Doesn't matter if you get your secondary in November, doesn't matter if you get your secondary in July, it is due the 31st of March. And that just is what it is. Now moving on to some organizational tips that I used, which you can also implement. When I started the application process for medical school. I created a folder in my Google Drive called Medical School Applications. And then for each of these schools that I was invited to fill out a secondary for, I would create a Google Doc. That Google Doc at the top would have the URL for the portal. It would have my username and my password. And then after that, I would copy and paste all of the questions as well as the requirements, the maximums for the word count or the character count, as well as whether or not spaces counted, because sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. And that is what I would do for all 22 of these secondaries that I had. So it would say blah, blah, blah school name, number 1, blah, blah, blah school name, number 2, blah, blah, blah school name, number 3. And that is what I did to organize and make sure that all of them were in there. And then once I had something completed, I would do a little check mark emoji in the title. That way when I was scrolling on my phone or on my computer, I would be able to easily see when it's done. And when it was a work in progress, I had a yellow heart. And if I hadn't gotten to it yet, it just didn't have an emoji. Now, the other thing that I also had to do was that I had all the individual Google Docs, but then I also had a Google Sheet, which is essentially an Excel sheet. And what that would do is it would have the day that I received the invitation to fill out the secondary application, and then it would have the deadline of the secondary application and the day that I personally submitted the secondary application. So those were the 3 columns that I started out with for each of the schools. But eventually, once we get to the interview portion, I would have to add more columns concerning that, but we will get to that in another video, which I will be filming about tips for how to get through your interview portion of the medical school application cycle. So those are the 2 things that I did in order to organize the period of time when I was filling out my secondary applications. Up next, we are going to be talking about some of the common questions that you will notice when you are writing your secondary applications. And the number 1 question that every medical school is going to ask you is, why are you interested specifically in our medical school? And that is a very important thing. They want to know why you are interested in them. What is it that we did? Have you really given some thought, some research into our school, our curriculum, or are you just applying just for the heck of it? And they know that you're applying to other medical schools. They are not dumb. They know that they are one of 15, one of 20, one of 25, one of 30 medical schools that you are applying to. And they want to know, have you really thought about what it would be like if you were to come to their medical school and live out your life for the next 4 years? So in this section, you are going to want to be specific. You are going to want to mention, something about their curriculum, maybe something about their faculty, or a specific name drop of a program they have dedicated to diversity. And this is also a very good place for you to say something about if you have a connection to either the state, the city, or the school specifically. Did you do a summer program with them? Did you do a research program with them? Did you do some kind of camp experience with them? If you have that kind of background, they want to know, because it creates a little bit of connection between you and the school. So some of the things that you would talk about, at least when I was applying to UAMS, University of Arkansas Medical School, is the fact that I was born in Arkansas, that Arkansas is the place my family goes to every Thanksgiving and Christmas, that it's where my grandmothers live. And it is a very important part of who I am as a Southern girl who has moved all over the United States. No matter where my home is, Arkansas will always be my number 1 home. So things like that are what they would like to know. If you can make it specific and if you can make it personal, that is something that they want to see in this question. Another common question they'll ask, since it is becoming more and more the norm for a student to take a gap year or years in between their undergraduate experience and medical school, they will ask a question along the lines of, what have you been doing since your graduation from your undergraduate institution? And I am someone who took not one, but 2 gap years. This is where they're going to want to know, did you work? If you worked, what were you doing? What did you learn from this experience? How did it develop you or make you feel like medicine is the place where you want to be? Were you doing research? Give a little blurb about your research and how that gave you an extra understanding of the interface between the people that your research would help and the importance of research in medicine, not just understanding like, oh, I have medicine to use as a doctor. Oh, I have research to rely on as a doctor, but where does that research actually come from? Or maybe you spent your gap years traveling, relaxing, doing things that make you feel good. That way you can protect your mental and emotional health and just create positive habits before you start a very stressful, intensive, and lifelong career of active learning in medicine. Whatever it is that you did, you want to own it. So I would talk about working at the Retina Associates of Cleveland for 2 years, how it gave me an extra sense of understanding and appreciation for my eyes, not just as a tool for entertainment, because I love movies and TV shows. That was a central thing of not only my common application for college applications, but also for my primary application for medical school. So I was able to talk about how working there gave me an extra appreciation for my eyes because they are what provide a lot of independence as someone ages. That's what I was able to talk about for this question. Another question that they will ask is, tell us about a time that you went through something difficult and what you learned from it. This question is one that can bring up a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, a lot of memories that might not necessarily be something you want to share. And that's perfectly fine. You do not have to bare your soul to some random stranger who you might never even meet just so you can get into this medical school. You are able to share as much or as little as you want to. Do you want to talk about what it was like being someone who immigrated to the United States? Do you want to be talking about what it means to be a minority in medicine or a minority in STEM? I'm Black, I'm a woman, I can talk about things like that. Do you want to talk about what it would mean to be a doctor as someone who grew up under the poverty line? Or do you want to do something a little less personal, a little less soul rendering, and just talk about something that was difficult in an academic sense? Like, I had a really tough time in organic chemistry. I had to get a tutor. I ended up doing well. It taught me perseverance, guiding questions, blah, blah, blah. You can decide what it is that you want to share, and there is no judgment that will come from anyone because this is your application. As you fill out these secondary applications, you will start to notice that there's a lot of crossover, and in that, work smarter, not harder. If you see the same question being asked, copy and paste. Copy and paste, and then either maybe add some words or delete some words depending on what it is the maximum character count is. And make sure that if you're going to copy and paste that you go back and you make sure that you're saying the right university name, the right city, the right mascot, because you do not want to be mixing your schools up when you're submitting your secondary application, because once it's in, it's in. And now some tips for the actual writing of your essays. Make sure that you are answering all parts of the question. You can't answer parts 1 and 2 and just leave part 3 out. Now, when you do that, you might be missing out on a part of their rubric for grading, and you're just getting 0 out of 5 points because you didn't talk about part 3. Take the time to answer each part of the question. That way they will know that 1, you've read the question, and 2, you have given sufficient thought and time to be able to write out your answer. Another thing you're going to want to do once you have written all of your essays, and even when you are in the process of writing them, is to make sure that you are editing, that your grammar is correct, your punctuation is correct. My mom is an Emmy-nominated news anchor. I know that if I hand something to her, she is going to do all of the editing and it's going to be perfect. But I'm not going to always have her in my corner, like physically, to be able to do that. So being able to do that yourself is something that is very important. When you're writing, you want to make sure that you are taking up as much of your word or character count as you can. Let them know everything that you feel about this topic. Make sure that you are explaining yourself well when you are giving a certain story to answer the diversity question, or when you're talking about the hardship question. You want to let them know that this is something that matters to you, and you're not just giving a short answer to a long form question. But if you have answered the question in its entirety, if you have said all you need to say, don't necessarily feel like you have to add useless fluff to round out the word count. That's okay. All I'm saying is make sure that as you're writing, you are using all of the words and characters allotted to you to make sure that you give a sufficient answer for the question. And those are all my tips for completing your medical school secondary applications. Now, if you are someone who is in this process of completing those applications, you've got this. I believe in you. You need to believe in yourself as well. You're going to do great. Everything is going to turn out right. These are just essays. It's just words. You got this. And if you are someone who has enjoyed this video, if it has given you some tips that you are going to use in your medical school application cycle, make sure that you give this a thumbs up. You can also become a patron for as little as $2 using the link in my description. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always put those down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, which is going to be about interviews in the application cycle. Bye.